Hello, hello. This is Irene with SaugaTalks. Hello, everyone. I'm in my studio speaking with fascinating people in tech as usual. So, if you're listening on major podcasting platforms, or if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're on LinkedIn or Twitter or anywhere else where SaugaTalks presence, please make sure that our guests will have enough exposure, meaning that please like and comment and share with your communities, with your peers, with your audiences, because guess what? My guests are so generous with their time, with their experiences. I keep saying it at every episode because it's true. So I want to make sure that we speak to large number of people who are interested in tech, who might be already in tech, or who kind of considering the career in tech. It's pretty much covers everyone, I think, on this planet, meaning that life without tech is not possible anymore. That's why I have brilliant, brilliant people who are so kind with their time. And Grace Gong is here with me today. Hello, Grace. How are you?
Hi, Irene. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And this is such a, I think everyone should follow Irene. I really appreciate your professionalism. And yeah, I'm excited to share everything I know about anything I know. Thank you so much
Perfect.
for having me again.
Perfect. You are a Web3 everything. You see, I'm so impressed with your bio, with number of projects you're involved. And this is amazing. I'm following you on LinkedIn. I attended, I think, Twitter talk at some point on Twitter Spaces where you presented you spoke to large audience. This is amazing what you do, Grace. Can we, before we jump into Web3 and launching brand in Web3 topic that we announced, could you please share a few points of how you got where you are? Because your bio is amazing.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for the kind words. And yes, I do a weekly Web3 show on LinkedIn and with two of my amazing co-hosts. We're all on, really fortunate to be on part of LinkedIn Top Voice, and we want to really highlight the voice of Web3 as well as like many really talented people. So today we have like two lawyers on the show to talk about Web3 legal specific questions the audience have. It was a fantastic experience, and I really appreciate that you took the time to participate in some of these events. And as for my personal experience, so how I got here, I came from originally I was an international student, and when I came to the U.S., I didn't really know anyone. When I moved to Silicon Valley, I realized like a lot of my friends who went to school around here who can just run into the VP of big techs on their campus, or unicorn founders or investors on their campus. I really wanted to create that kind of experience for people who doesn't really have that network. So when I created Smart Venture Podcast, I just wanted to for the younger version of myself, or maybe not even just younger, but like the like another version of myself as like someone who didn't really have much of a connection, who wants to advance their career, who wants to pick brains from the top tech leaders in the world, or investors or unicorn founders, to directly learn from them, and I guess grab the coffee chat or pick brains from these people. So I was fortunate to have that access in Silicon Valley in the network, and I just really wanted to create that experience for everybody else around the world. And after I think that's the TLDR of what I do right now. And part of that, I worked in venture capital and private equity, and before that, I published some books in the VC and startup space. I interviewed many really talented founders on various like Forbes related lists, and so that's like the TLDR of like who I am in a nutshell. And I am just really passionate about learning and sharing the knowledge I've learned from these top founders, investors, and I really hope that knowledge, or like the information diet, could help everybody around the world.
Everyone, you're listening to us, follow Grace, because lots of posts on LinkedIn. Again, that's helpful to me, and again, amazing networking opportunity for sure. So Grace, why don't we into Web3 that you're passionate about and I become passionate about, speaking with smart people in tech?
Mhm.
What do you think brands need to know first, because word is a buzzword right now everywhere? How can we send
Mhm.
them off on that journey?
Yeah, totally. I actually recently just wrote an article for BFF, which is amazing women-led platform for Web3 educational informations. And so to think about brands in Web3, I think the difference between Web3 and Web2 are, one of the keywords is community. And I feel like building a engaging community and including your fan in those really key decisions that you will be making is extremely important. When I think about, building a brand in Web3 is, number one, I feel like definitely having, getting input from your community is extremely important. Identifying who the core demographics or like who are the core supporter of your product and really listen to them, really, not just putting them in a group chat, but actually getting feedback from them about your product, like, why they love it, what's their day like, that creating that kind of like 360 experience around, to fit it yourself into their life is extremely important. So I think the number one is definitely listening to your community. I think like building a community and then finding a way to engage your community to really listen to your customer is like extremely important. Let's talk like two big example would be like Nike made the big money move, which is acquiring Artifact. And I feel like this brand is just like, I think one of the things that they've done right is they are really, I think like because of the Artifact studio is like really kind of aligned with the edginess or like, the just do it vibe with Nike. Because if I were running, I guess back in time, if I ever get a chance to be a part of the decision making, I may run with someone like a Bebo with $69 million NFT sold. I would be really considering collaborating with someone like that instead of like finding the authentic voice of the Web3 version of the company that like representing that idea. But I feel like Nike did such a great job to acquire that company and then launching some really authentic art collections or like collaborations. And on the other hand, we have the Gucci of the world who are making really small bets each time. They've did Gucci Garden on Roblox, and then they've launched their own like Metaverse, and then they are investing in Super Rare DAO, and like so they've made a really just like many small bets to kind of having that overall strategy and then like really going step by step. That's like a really authentic way to entering Web3 as well. And I feel like both of them are really good example of how brands launching their, I guess, Web3 strategy per se.
For sure, for sure. Did you find partnership with Web3 native companies helping kind of traditional brands to get on that wagon? What do you think here?
Yeah, totally. I think like, I think one of the things a brand should think of is like, is your Web3 audience truly the people who will purchase your physical product? Because a lot of when it comes to brands, right? Like we think about the everyday brands, like we think about, the consumer like can buy, like a consumer can buy your product in like a supermarket or like in like, a big fancy mall or like, basically it's like, you have that physical part. And then right now, one of the most kind of like popular word is Phygital. So what that means is like, let's say if I buy like a Chipotle coin, I can, cash out like to go to the cash register at Chipotle to be like, hey, can I pay? Like, can I get a like, a Chipotle burrito from there? So like people are really into that kind of like Phygital, like combine physical and digital experience together. That's like one of the major, I guess, like one of the major strategy for a lot of brands. And I personally think it's like a really good to actually have utility for your Web3 initiatives. However, I feel like it's really important to also figure out, are the people who are buying your NFT the same group who will buy your physical product? Because I think Web3, a lot of brands entering Web3 have the intention to, attract younger audience, to attract the Gen Z of the world, to really just tap into that new audience. So I feel like you should totally have tailored strategy for like for your digital play than your physical play. I definitely appreciate the digital approach. However, I definitely feel like you should probably like try to have like multiple strategies, as the people who are buying your NFT may not be the same person who will purchase your your physical goods.
You mentioned communities and communities
Hmm.
for medium-sized brand or big brands. This is
Hmm.
always your customers, your partners, your investors. It's a lot of
Hmm.
groups, right? A lot of cohorts, so
Hmm.
to speak. Do you find Web3 enabling brands to actually make their clients, their customers, stakeholders? Taking active part in the way
Yeah.
brand is developing. Mhm.
Yeah, like another part you mentioned is, which is really amazing, which is ownership, right? So, like, can your audience own a piece of your company, right? Like, I think that's just a really great way to, incorporate the DAO type of strategy. So, there's something that like maybe I'm too advanced to talk about in our show, because we'll wait until that launch. But I feel like, definitely giving your audience, after they purchase something, they like, they have the, like, I think this really circling back to the first point I made, which is like listening to your customer, right? Like having them be that decision maker for your product, because a lot of brands spending so much money onto user research, and like they will hire a huge team to, or like hire the web3 experts to give them some strategy. And but I personally feel like the most budget friendly and the most like a better way to do this is to incorporate your audience opinion into things, right? Like when you're like actually listening to them, they would provide you the strategy of building a better product, launching a better campaign, or just literally anything. I feel like that's a lot better way to um you know to just pick brains from your community members to incorporate that into your strategy. I think that's just a lot better of approach.
Exactly. And Web3 technologies now enable everyone to actually build that collaborative
Hmm.
approach. That's what you're
Hmm.
talking about, right? And it's all the way from strategy, from results. And you mentioned the expensive marketing research every brand
Hmm.
conducting on user survey, on lots of
Hmm.
methodologies and techniques that don't bring results. I've been in those shoes before, okay? We
Hmm.
spend tons of dollars, not understanding the insights actually, right? So tapping on your
Hmm.
client, tapping on your audience is probably even more productive and also innovative, right?
Yeah, totally. And like, you and I are doing this podcast together, meaning that like, we both have our ownership of part of this show. And then it's, like when you're incorporating like someone else, or like when you are having people having part of the ownership of a piece of product or like a piece of digital arts, like people are way more likely to get the word out there, to promote it to their friends, and to give you the true opinion on how they think about something, right? Like I feel like because of they are part of it, and then their net worth, or like their personal gains also tied to the success of your product. So I feel like giving your, especially your super fans, ownership are extremely important.
It's called stake in the game, right? We all
Yeah,
invest
totally.
more once we feel engaged, once we feel
Hmm.
invested, right? We're not just,
Hmm.
again, neutral to this brand work anymore. We're following, we want to
Hmm.
be part of, absolutely. And again, technology enabling us
Hmm.
here. Grace, you talk a lot about investments and venture capitalists. How do you find this market right now? Too cool for school or what? I mean, what's kind of happening there, in your opinion?
Yeah, totally. I think that's a great question. I think I personally live in Silicon Valley, so um from my first like hand experience is like I feel like the best projects are still raising money. This week we've seen Doodles raise 54 million dollars, right? Like so basically the top blue chip projects are still having no trouble, no slowing down on raising money. And there's a lot of utility driven startups are also like, so having like have been like raising money pretty decently successfully. Maybe not at the highest valuation, like as like prior to this whole like market crash. I wouldn't say market crash, but like I guess like market slowing down. I feel like they are really yeah, so basically the top projects are still raising money successfully, and I do think it's like they are taking um I guess it makes the market a lot more healthier, as like a lot of the quick money grab projects are kind of gone or slowing down, and most people are still like most people who are building a great product are still going hard on um their building journey. So I feel like you see more of the top project is still raising money successfully, and then the number two is like people are really focusing on building utility driven product than just a really easy and quick money grab.
Is this a place where we talk about metaverse? Because to me, these
Mm,
words now almost no interchangeably used, don't you think?
hmm Totally. So in terms of the metaverse, it is a place. So I think like people really complicate things to make it sounds like a really completely new idea. I personally feel like it's just like like what the most people on the internet believes, that like it is just a time that you spend more time on your digital world than your physical world. As metaverse is just a your like basically where you can reflect your digital identity. What I like about the metaverse compared to like the physical like face to face is like sometimes you can express yourself more freely. Like let's say like when you are in, for example, right now when I go to the mall, I have to wearing like a just traditional t-shirt or like a mini suit or like like some casual clothing. But in the metaverse, when I express myself, I can be whoever, look like whatever. I could wearing crazy hat, or I could basically dress myself the way that I want it, and then that's a way to express who you truly are from digital perspective. And then on the other hand, there's no limitation in terms of geographic location. So right now, although I live in Silicon Valley, I can still talk to people like yourself, in another different state, and then I could communicate with people. And then like I have a mini Web3 meetup group on LinkedIn, and then prior to well, a couple of weeks ago, we have one of the founders who founded a bar in the metaverse. So she leveraged like I believe Spatial or like another website to build a mini metaverse or like mini wine room for all of us. We all went on her metaverse to we didn't really we taste the wine in the we didn't really taste the wine, but I guess like we can just feeling that like we are being in the same room together, we can dress the way that we wanted instead of just wearing like a really boring t-shirt. I feel like that was a really great experience to actually feeling that you are being in the same room with people that you may like sadly you may never ever meet in person, right? We have people from Italy, from Dubai, from Canada. Like I personally live in the US, and then so to make everybody sitting in the same room will cost a lot of money. However, that metaverse experience really provided us like a little deeper bond, because like it really makes you feel like you are in the same room physically.
We kind of touched on creator economy already, but I still want to
Hmm.
spell it out explicitly because now it's interchangeable again. Environment we're in. So Web3 creator economy.
Hmm.
Is
Hmm.
it again? And I'm dumbing down this question, on
Hmm.
purpose. Is it for creators only, for those who are marketeers, for those who are out there, artists, musicians, or it's for every business? I just want to hear your opinion.
I think everyone can find their place to Web3 or the metaverse. I think the metaverse is supposed to be like a more of a amplifier on what you already feeling, instead of like exclusive experience for only the most creative people can succeed. I think because I do think it's like a really provided a little bit different platform than, the past like Web2 space. I feel like, when you talk about creatives, like one of the creative part is, let's say, writing, right? Like writing has been, since Web 1, you can technically write a web page, and then Web 2, you can like be in like a Reddit forum that, like, you commenting on other people's just like other people's topics or other people's thoughts, right? And then in Web 3, you can, like you mentioned earlier, there's the ownership piece of it, right? Like, let's say you use like a Mirror XYZ, you can technically monetize your thoughts right on the spot, and then other people can have ownership, can have a part of the ownership to, own a piece of like what they also believe in. I think those are really important. Writing is not a skill that's only for the most creative people, right? It's for business people, it's for just literally anyone. I'm sure if you live in the world, you probably wrote something in the past. So I personally feel like that's really inclusive in terms of, how you express yourself. It's not necessarily the most creative people can do it. On the other hand, I personally have a separate opinion on the word creator, because I don't think creator meaning you have to be creative. I'm a creator myself. I've observed like many of the really successful creators took off, and I interview some of them on my podcast. I feel like all of them have, number one, a really robust system for themselves. They all kind of like, they're more of like a disciplined person than being extremely creative. I'm sure like some of them are extremely, having really unique perspective in arts, in like music, in like video making. However, like most of them are just designed like a really robust system. Let's say in the morning, this is the time that they consume content, and then in the middle of the day, they, no matter what, they would shoot a video, and then, at 3 o'clock they edit that video, at 9 o'clock they must launch it. So basically they all have a really just like strict discipline to, consume content, producing content, editing content, promoting their content. They are more of a disciplined person than I would call them creative. So I do think if you are a hardworking person, and then if you are a person with your own thoughts and opinions, you can find your place in the metaverse, in the Web3 space, in anything.
To
Mm-hmm.
create, it means to create your workflow, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
process, what you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
your structure around it. And this, everyone becomes their own mini company in a way, right? From strategy
Mm-hmm.
to planning to realization to results
Mm-hmm.
and going back in that circle. So this
Mm-hmm.
is, to me, it's fascinating how this kind of industrial age mentality
Mm-hmm.
transforming as we speak. So, do you
Mm-hmm.
find this again frustrating for larger companies? Because it's not easy to go from that waterfall model and very hierarchical structure to this horizontal networking community based workflow. How do you find these kind of two worlds, working together?
Well, like one of the famous investor said, like not the strongest companies, well, like not the most like, yeah, I believe it was like the strongest company succeed, or like not like, basically there was a theory of like the Darwin theories that's like the species that live the longest are not the strongest, the biggest. Same to startups, right? Like it is the ones that who can adapt themselves succeed the longest, right? Like, so basically I personally would feel like the best tech company are starting invest heavily into the creator programs. A good example would be where we met on LinkedIn, right? Like LinkedIn have been really friendly to the creators. They've been invest both like money and time and like creator manager programs to, to help creators succeed on top of the platform. So I personally feel like some of the big companies are doing great in that sense. And I do think other companies should definitely incorporate creator strategy into it. This week we have, Mr. Beast and Mr. Beast manager are on the highest ranking, I believe it was Forbes list. So basically they're saying, like creators are the next generation of big brands. I've also listened to this from like my chats with like other investors, or like other investors chats with other investors. Basically, people are saying creators may be the next generation of the big tech brands, because of they already own the distribution platform, they own their audience, they know what the audience want, and they can basically incorporate like the Web3 identity, right? Like they can incorporate the ideas into the product right away. And I think big company to succeed in this space, you definitely should work with creators.
In some older terms, it used to be partnership. It used to be this collaborative kind of part of the business, but now it's furthermore important, right? And if you're behind, and if your company is not looking at your ecosystem, right, and the creators that will help you to get better, right, and frankly, to hear what's happening outside in the outside world, right, because large companies become so much focused on their importance and their internal processes. So I spent part of my career there. I know exactly the feeling. That's why, to me, the possibilities are amazing. What we're seeing out there. Grace, thank you so very much for your time. This is enormously energizing talk. In conclusion, as takeaways, would you like to finish with few takeaways for the audience? Again, going back to launching your brand in Web3, maybe 3 steps or something.
Yeah, totally. To think about launching your brand in Web3, number one, you have to really hone in on the community that you're building. Your community is your audience. It's the people gonna support your product. It's a person, it's the people who can actually give you the right idea on the right product. And I think number one, definitely focus on the community. Number two, really focusing on the fit instead of like what looks good on paper, right? Think, instead of thinking, what is the biggest brand that I could work with? Think what is the or like biggest creator I could work with, or like biggest any collaborator you want to work with. Think who are gonna make sense for you and your business. Really finding that fit, and then really identifying, who you are, why people come to you, and then finding the partnership that really resonate with you and your audience is extremely important. And number three is, physical and digital goods may not be the same group of audience. You really need to have that tailored strategy to attract both, the digital natives as well as the, your original fans who loves your physical product. Creating that, 360 experience is extremely important. So those are my three, I guess, takeaway for the brands who want to enter the Web3 space.
Thank you so much. In conclusion, I encourage everyone again, follow Grace, find the good advice right there, connect with Grace, because as you see, she's amazing professional advising brands, advising customers. So thank you, Grace, so very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. I definitely highly encourage everybody to follow Irene as well. If you're listening to this, she is very professional, and I truly admire that you are, having it all like looking so professionally, and then you show up all the time on LinkedIn. And I really admire that work ethic, that the amount of work you put in, as well as you show up really just like prepared and everything.
Thank you.